But here's the thing. If you stay disciplined, that chaos starts to settle. It's subtle at first. The constant compulsion to check your phone lessens. The aching pull to scroll through their social media weakens. You might notice that you've gone a few hours without thinking about them, and it surprises you. Those small gaps of peace are your first sign that no contact is beginning to work. You are retraining your nervous system to stop expecting them. You are teaching your mind that their absence does not mean danger or loss. It means safety and space. This isn't about pretending you don't care. It's about allowing yourself to detach from the emotional spikes and crashes they used to trigger. In the relationship, every text, every call, every word could send you soaring or sinking. They had the ability to make or break your mood in seconds. But as no contact takes root, you begin to reclaim that power. Their name no longer feels like a knife in your chest. Their memory no longer hijacks your entire day. You'll notice your mornings start to feel lighter. Where you once woke up with a tightness in your chest, replaying the past or anticipating the next manipulation, you now wake up thinking about what you need to do today. That shift is massive because it means your mind is beginning to prioritize your life over theirs. You are no longer orbiting around their chaos. You're standing on your own ground. Even your body starts to respond. The tension in your shoulders eases. The constant knot in your stomach loosens. This is because emotional stability directly affects your physical state. When you're not in fight or flight every moment, your body starts to heal alongside your mind. That stability isn't just a feeling, it's a sign that you're moving out of survival mode and into self-preservation. Some people mistake the fading intensity for indifference, but it's not that you've stopped caring. It's that you've stopped bleeding. You've learned to protect your emotional wounds instead of ripping them open every time they cross your mind. This is progress. It's the emotional equivalent of your heart's immune system strengthening. And the best part is, the more you notice this stability, the more momentum you gain. It becomes easier to go another day without reaching out, easier to resist the temptation of checking up on them, easier to focus on your own growth instead of their absence. That stability is proof you're winning the inner battle, the one that counts the most. When you realize you can go an entire day without emotional turbulence caused by them, that's not just progress, it's freedom beginning to take shape. And freedom, once it starts growing, becomes very hard to take away. One of the clearest signs that no contact is working is when you feel the shift in your own mental and emotional state. In the beginning, it's like your mind keeps pulling you back into the past, replaying memories, analyzing conversations, wondering if you made the right decision. That's normal. Your brain is still addicted to the cycle of highs and lows, the emotional spikes that come with toxic dynamics. But over time, without new fuel being added to the fire, those patterns start to weaken. You notice that you're not checking your phone as much. You're not replaying every detail in your head. The noise begins to quiet down. It's almost like you start reclaiming mental real estate that had been completely occupied before. Instead of waking up with them in your head, you wake up thinking about something else, your goals, your work, maybe even something as small as what you're going to eat for breakfast. That's progress. Because the truth is, when you remove constant exposure to someone who has been draining you, your mind begins to repair itself. It's not an overnight fix, but you begin to notice these tiny victories, moments where you feel lighter without even realizing why. Another sign is that you stop feeling the need to justify your decision. At first, you may find yourself mentally arguing with their ghost, rehearsing what you'd say if they came back, or defending yourself to people who don't understand your choice. But after some time, you don't need to explain anymore, not to them, not to others, and not even to yourself. You just know. There's a clarity that comes from distance. The fog starts to lift, and you see the dynamic for what it really was, not through the emotional lens that distorted it before. You also start regaining a sense of power in your own choices. In toxic or manipulative relationships, it's common to feel like you're reacting all the time to their moods, their texts, their actions. No contact reverses that. You're no longer reacting, you're acting. You're setting the terms for your life instead of letting someone else dictate them. That shift alone is a huge indicator that it's working. You begin to realize that peace is not boring and drama is not passion, and that realization changes the way you look at everything. And here's another thing. You notice that the triggers that once had a strong hold on you start losing their grip. Maybe a certain song used to send you spiraling, or a location made your chest tighten. As the weeks go by, the emotional intensity tied to those triggers begins to fade. That's not because the memories disappear, but because you've stopped reinforcing them with new emotional energy. The brain rewires itself over time when it's not constantly being re-exposed to the same emotional hooks. The beauty of this process is that one day you wake up and realize you've gone hours, maybe even a whole day, without thinking about them. That might sound small, but it's monumental. It means your mind is healing, your emotions are stabilizing, and you're beginning to live fully in the present instead of in a loop of the past. That is when you truly know no contact isn't just a rule you're following, it's a path you're walking toward freedom. One of the clearest signs that no contact is working is when you notice your thoughts starting to shift from them to yourself. In the beginning, it's normal for your mind to be consumed by what they're doing, who they're with, or whether they miss you. That's the withdrawal phase, and it's intense because your brain is still wired to the habit of them. But as time passes, without the constant emotional hooks and manipulations, you begin to reclaim your mental space. You start waking up and not checking your phone to see if they reached out. You realize hours have passed without thinking about them at all. That mental distance isn't just accidental, it's a sign your brain is rewiring, your nervous system is calming, and you're regaining the mental bandwidth you didn't even realize you'd lost. You also begin to notice that your emotional triggers are less frequent and less intense. Where before, seeing something that reminded you of them might have ruined your whole day, now it barely causes a ripple. That doesn't mean you're numb, it means your emotional regulation is returning. You're no longer being yanked around by the highs and lows they used to cause. That stability is a direct result of removing the stimulus that kept you in a heightened state of anxiety or longing. Without that constant emotional turbulence, you start to feel grounded again, and that is a major sign that no contact is doing its job. Alongside this, your self-awareness sharpens. When you're no longer in the fog of their influence, you can see patterns clearly, what they did, how you responded, and why it affected you so deeply. That clarity can be painful at first because you start to realize just how much of yourself you compromised. But it's also liberating because awareness is the first step to real change. You can't heal what you can't name, and now you're naming it. You're identifying the behaviors, the cycles, and the vulnerabilities that kept you hooked. That self-reflection is proof you're breaking the spell and reclaiming your narrative. Another indicator is when your sense of self-worth begins to rise without external validation. In the relationship, your self-esteem may have been tethered to how they treated you. If they were loving, you felt valuable. If they were cold, you felt small. But with no contact, you start to detach your value from their opinion. You find joy in small accomplishments that have nothing to do with them. You take pride in choices that protect your peace. You begin to trust yourself again. That shift from looking outward for approval to finding it within is monumental. It's one of the strongest signs that you're no longer in their emotional grip. And perhaps one of the most satisfying signs of all is when you begin to genuinely enjoy your own company again. You fill your time with things you love, not just as a distraction, but because they truly matter to you. The quiet no longer feels like loneliness. It feels like freedom. You stop waiting for them to come back because you realize you're building a life they no longer have access to. That's when the power fully shifts. When your thoughts are no longer dominated by them, when your emotions feel steadier, when your self-awareness is sharp, and your self-worth is rising, those are the undeniable signs that no contact is not only working but transforming you. And the beauty of that transformation is that it's entirely yours. They have no say in it, and they never will again. When you go no contact, there's a moment when you start to notice something subtle but incredibly important. You begin to reclaim your own narrative. For a long time, your mind might have been wrapped around the relationship, replaying memories, dissecting conversations, wondering what they're thinking or how they're reacting to your silence. But one of the clearest signs that no contact is working is when that mental grip begins to loosen, when your thoughts stop revolving around them and start orbiting around you again. It's not an overnight change. At first, the urge to check their social media or wonder if they've reached out can feel overwhelming. But slowly, those urges become less intense, and one day, you realize hours or even an entire day has gone by without them taking up any space in your head. That's when you know something inside you has shifted. No contact isn't just about cutting communication with the other person. It's about cutting the invisible strings that kept you emotionally entangled. You might have spent months or years feeling like your sense of peace depended on how they treated you, whether they validated you, or whether they gave you crumbs of affection. When no contact is working, you stop depending on that external validation. You stop scanning the horizon for their approval because you're building something sturdier and more lasting within yourself. And the beauty of that is it doesn't just make you stronger, it makes you freer. You're no longer living in reaction to someone else's actions or moods. You start living in alignment with your own values, your own boundaries, your own truth. Sometimes this shift shows up in the smallest ways. Maybe you find yourself laughing at something without that heaviness in your chest. Maybe you wake up and the first thought isn't about them, it's about what you want to do today. Maybe you're able to look at an old message or photo without feeling that sharp sting. That's not indifference born of bitterness. That's the quiet confidence that comes from healing And the reason that's so powerful is because it shows you've stopped letting them set the emotional temperature of your life. There's another layer to this. When no contact starts to work, you begin to trust yourself again. You realize that you don't need constant reassurance from someone else to feel secure. You can handle discomfort without breaking your own boundaries. You can sit with moments of loneliness without running back to what hurt you. And that self-trust becomes a foundation that no one can take from you. It changes how you show up in every area of your life. Your work, your friendships, your future relationships. Because once you've proven to yourself that you can walk away from what doesn't serve you, you stop accepting less than what you truly deserve. It's not always dramatic. Sometimes the signs are quiet, almost invisible to anyone but you. But the day you notice you're breathing easier, sleeping better, and thinking about your own future instead of the past, that's the day you'll know that no contact isn't just something you're doing. It's something that's changing you. And once you've felt that shift, there's no going back. One of the clearest signs that you're truly moving forward is when you stop needing them to see your progress. In the beginning, there's often this quiet, unspoken hope that they'll somehow notice how much stronger you've become, how much better you're doing without them. Maybe you imagine them regretting their choices, realizing what they lost, or feeling that they underestimated you. That's a natural thought at first, because part of you still feels tied to their perception of you. But real growth happens when you no longer care if they notice at all. Your healing isn't a performance, and your progress isn't a message you're sending to them. It's a life you're building for yourself. This shift happens gradually. At first, you might post certain things, wear certain outfits, or take certain actions with a tiny thought in the back of your mind about whether they might see it. But then, without even realizing it, you start doing things purely for yourself. You take care of your health because you value it, not because you want them to regret losing you. You pursue goals because they matter to you, not because you're trying to prove something to anyone else. The more you step into that mindset, the less power their opinion has over you. There's a deep freedom in no longer needing to be seen by them. Because when your worth isn't tied to their acknowledgement, you're free to define it on your own terms. You don't need their applause to validate your choices, and you don't need their recognition to know that you've grown. You realize that they are no longer the audience you're living for, and in that moment, they stop being the center of your story. What's interesting is that when you reach this stage, you may still think about them from time to time, but it's without that emotional charge. They're just a chapter you've read, not the book you're still writing. You can look back on it with clarity, not longing. And you might even surprise yourself by realizing you don't actually care what their opinion of you is anymore. Whether they think you've improved or not, whether they miss you or not, it no longer changes the way you see yourself. It's also in this space that your energy shifts. You're no longer expending mental and emotional effort trying to make an impression. That energy goes back into your own life, your goals, your passions, your peace. You notice how much lighter it feels to live without that constant need for external validation. You feel more grounded in your own identity, and you begin to choose your path without glancing over your shoulder to see if they're watching. And here's the thing, sometimes when you stop caring whether they see your growth, that's exactly when they start noticing. They might sense the change, the confidence, the detachment. But by then, it doesn't matter to you anymore. You're not living for their reaction. You're living for your own fulfillment. That's the point where no contact has done more than create distance. It has rebuilt you to someone who doesn't just survive without them, but thrives entirely on their own. And that's when you know you've truly let go. When you go no contact, one of the clearest signs it's working is that you've stopped measuring your progress by what the other person is doing. At the beginning, you might still check to see if they've called, texted, or liked something on your social media. You might still have that lingering hope that they're sitting there thinking about you every second. But when it starts working, that need begins to fade. You wake up in the morning and you're not instantly thinking about whether they're missing you. You're thinking about what you need to do today. You're shifting the center of your world back to yourself, and that is a massive breakthrough. See, no contact isn't about punishing someone else. It's about freeing yourself from the mental prison that a toxic relationship built around you. When it's working, you start to feel that freedom in small but powerful ways. You notice you're laughing more, even at little things. You find yourself enjoying moments without thinking about whether they'd approve or be there to see it. That's when you know you've taken your emotional power back, because your happiness is no longer dependent on their presence or validation. Another sign it's working is that the obsessive analysis starts to slow down. You're not replaying every conversation in your head, trying to decode what they really meant. You're not sitting in bed asking yourself what you could have done differently. Instead, you begin to see the relationship for what it actually was, with clarity, not rose-colored glasses. The more distance you have, the more you recognize patterns that were unhealthy, manipulative, or simply not serving your growth. That clarity isn't just a mental shift, it's an emotional detox. You start to breathe cleaner air in your mind. You'll also notice your energy returning. When you were caught up in their games, your emotional fuel was being burned 24/7. You were constantly reacting, constantly on guard, constantly anticipating the next drama. No contact stops that leak. Suddenly, you have the energy to pour into projects, into your appearance, into your health, into your ambitions. You realize how much of yourself you'd put on hold while trying to hold them together. The more you invest that energy into yourself, the less you even think about what they're doing. That's not bitterness. That's evolution. One of the strongest signs no contact is working is when you stop feeling the urge to break it. That means the emotional hooks they had in you are coming loose. At the beginning, you might have been white, knuckling your way through the silence, battling the urge to reach out. But over time, you'll find yourself thinking, why would I disturb my peace just to reopen that door? That's not just strength, that's wisdom. You felt the cost of going back, and you're no longer willing to pay it. And finally, you start to realize you've built a life that they're no longer the center of. And that life feels good. You're making decisions for yourself, not in reaction to them. You've proven to yourself that you can survive without them, and not just survive, thrive. That's when you know no contact isn't just working. It's transforming you. Because at the end of the day, the real goal isn't to get them back. The real goal is to get you back.